very valuable assets.
Everybody's money, where is it coming from? Why are governments printing it? And what does it mean to us?
Venezuela went from being the most prosperous country in the southern part of the Americas to become a disaster.
Like what's happening in Lebanon.
In a world where wealth inequality is the worst that it's ever been.
Instability, hunger, jobless people, misusage of currency. It's like a time bomb. They'll buy time, but they cannot keep it forever.
The country where I'm from, Jordan, over 65% of people don't have a bank account. It doesn't make sense. Like if you have a smartphone, you should have access to finance.
You have a leader that is controlling the resources, controls the military power, and has also the ability to change the rules. And their only escape for a lot of Venezuelan people has been having assets in cryptocurrencies.
Governments have been printing money in biblical proportions. We've never seen this before. If banks would never cheat us, then Bitcoin would not be necessary.
India is known for outsourcing a lot of from across the globe. India is the hub. Decentralizing this whole ecosystem where I'm not dependent on someone else and someone else is not exploiting me.
TikTok's full of kids today going to school talking about money printing and inflation. How great is that?
Young people, they're having, let's say, nothing to lose. So the next generation might have something else that we might fear. It's a human nature.
Hello, crypto world. Thanks for the guys. Thanks for producer Alex. Moderator. Welcome to Dubai from Canada. So before we start, so everybody back on stage, please. So let me introduce myself and our team. So I'm the Kirill Mishanin, the co-founder of Infodriver Capital. So we raised in Panama. We opened our office in US, now here in UAE. And we start from liquidity pools. And right now we invest or promote or advertise some exchanges, decentralized and centralized one. And today I would like to introduce our panelists. So Srinu, Vice President of BitOasis. Yes, I know that guys, they done a great job before. So they are more than 5 years on the market. So also I would like to introduce Talal, co-founder of CoinMENA. He was on this movie also. He's in the middle, I think. Nice, good-looking actor. So Harish Gupta, decentralized exchange FXDX from left side, and Mustafa from Bita. Nice to meet you. So we as a fund, once we invest in any project, we are really curious about the core of the team, the pipeline of investment strategy, and what is the unicorn market we would like to join. My first question is, so what is your core strategy? Why your company is live, and what is your future business development strategy here in UAE? Let's start from left to left. You could introduce yourself briefly and answer with questions, please.
Should I start?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we are a decentralized derivatives exchange, and we are regulated in Singapore and BVI. The core strategy of the business is, to build a decentralized exchange, which is the largest asset class in crypto. Most of the volumes comes from today that cryptocurrency does. It comes from derivatives. But when you look at the biggest players such as BitMEX and FTX, there are a lot of issues with them. Yes, a lot of these are big names today, but they rely and surround around one person, right? Whichever exchange you pick up. What happens if something goes bad with that person? So we are creating a decentralized exchange for that. So regardless of whatever happens to the person or the company, your assets are always safe in your wallet. So in terms of Dubai, we believe, Dubai is becoming extremely entrepreneurship and crypto heavy at the moment. The energy is rising exponentially. And we do plan to set up an office here. And yeah, so far we have raised over $6 million. And then we are looking to, go multi-chain. So is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Talal.
So my name is Talal Tabbaa, part of the CoinMENA team. We're basically a centralized exchange regulated by the Central Bank of Bahrain. And our mission is to give everyone in the Middle East a fair chance of being able to buy and sell cryptocurrencies in a regulated, insured, Sharia compliant manner. I do think that in the Middle East, we're still scratching the surface. We're a region of 500+ million. The biggest exchanges have less than 250,000 customers, and that's being generous. So basically for us, our focus is B2C mass retail, and yeah, happy to be with everyone on the panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Srinu Chowhan here. I'm from BitOasis. So BitOasis is on a mission to build the entire crypto ecosystem for Middle East and beyond. So with that vision, the company was created back in 2015. Back in early days, company had an option to focus on like short-term growth versus long-term growth. And the company focused on the long-term growth. We are working with the regulators quite closely back in the earlier days, and kind of pay way forward for all the other exchanges like CoinMENA and all the other ones kind of come in and like really help drive this crypto adoption for everyone in the region, right? The market is still it's in the early stages as compared to the rest of the world. If you look at the crypto adoption elsewhere, it's much lower as compared to the international average, right? So that's the mission me and everyone in the company are on, and yeah, we would invite everyone to join us on this mission as well.
I think so. Okay. This is Mustafa, part of the Bita team. Bita is this major crypto exchange in Turkey with 700,000 KYC validated users, around $25 million daily trading volume. And it is an established business. So based on our experience, know-how, and in-house technology now, we would like to build this, business towards other countries in the region and other markets. That's our, current strategy. In the meantime, we would like to diversify our portfolio towards staking and NFT marketplace, plus launchpad, programs and services for the startups. So I think crypto adoption is a huge thing that we have been discussing for a while now, and Turkey is one of the live examples for that. I think if you look at the other markets around the region, so you can basically see the same vibe, and perhaps that more vehicles are there. So I think that the experience is going to be more and widely available. That's what we try to do. Thank you.
Okay, good guys. So actually there are right now kind of fight between centralized exchange and decentralized. My question goes to Harish. He ran decentralized exchanges. Should decentralized exchanges be regulated? And if not, why?
Wait, so you said whether decentralized should be regulated?
Yes,
or not?
decentralized.
Yeah, I mean,
as I understand, you decentralized exchange.
Yeah, so I mean, DEXs should be like ideally, if you talk to our users, they would say it's better to not be regulated so that they don't have to go through the KYC process. They don't have to go through, all the hula hoops that you come across, a centralized exchange. So if you look at anything such as Uniswap, Pancake, Sushi, how would you feel like if these were highly regulated, you need permission to list any asset, you need to go through KYC AML to trade. It would be kind of, super frictionful exchanges, but then, that's not how the world works. So regulatory bodies are going after big names such as Uniswap, and, only because these are non-custodial solutions, they are saying that you're still facilitating trades, so which is a regulated activity and it needs to be regulated. So we believe, and we strongly believe, I come from a highly regulated background. So I strongly believe, working at big banks and Wall Street, so I strongly believe that the future of DeFi and DEXs is regulated. we cannot have a future where any of these platforms, the big names in DeFi, unregulated, no laws and regulations, and manage hundreds of billions, if not trillions. So the future of DeFi is regulated, and we are gearing towards those regulations.
Okay, thank you. So guys who are from centralized exchange, what's your thoughts about decentralized exchange? Do they need to be regulated? And what are the benefits of centralized opposite to decentralized one?
So allow me to jump in on this one. I'm one of the founders of a centralized exchange, and I do think that decentralized exchanges will remain unregulated. If they force them to be regulated, it's open source code. People will fork it and launch an unregulated version of that. So the beauty about decentralized exchanges is, I don't know if you remember Napster. Napster was a centralized place where you would download pirated music. And then Sean Parker, the founder of Napster, they threw him in jail because there was a party or individual that you could go after. The nice thing about decentralized exchanges, if they're actually decentralized, there's no one to go after, right? Bitcoin is a decentralized network of money. They can't catch Satoshi. Uniswap, they could take down the website, but the Uniswap contract is forever living on the Ethereum blockchain. So in my humble opinion, decentralized exchanges will remain unregulated and will actually mature as people try them out and face issues, because it's like a kid touching a hot stove. You touch it once, you realize it's hot, you don't do it again. So something like Compound, which is a decentralized money market, it moves billions of dollars. So naturally, people are going to trust it. So in my opinion, decentralized exchanges will remain unregulated, at least the successful ones. And the successful ones will basically use the test of time and stress test of users going in and out, and that's how they'll gain people's trust, not by a stamp of approval from some regulator in Barbados or otherwise.
Go ahead. What's your opinion?
Or me?
Srinu, you're next. From right to left, what's your opinion about decentralized exchanges? Do they need to be regulated? And what are the core features from your exchange opposite the decentralized one?
So there are a lot of benefits that comes with decentralized exchange, right? Obviously, like trying out all these new tokens and connecting to your own wallets, right? Like MetaMask or any other ones. Those come with like its own benefits, but with centralized exchange, there are like different sort of benefits that might not be offered with decentralized exchange as well, right? So as Talal rightly mentioned, I do believe that decentralized exchange, the successful ones especially, will be there for the long term, and they need to be in certain ways like kind of open and independent of other let's say restrictions or limitations. But I think people will move between like the centralized exchange and decentralized exchange for its own like benefits. But I think the role, how the role of these two kind of play in people's life is the most important aspect, right? So people would kind of first look at the centralized exchange as an entry point to convert their fiat into the new world of the crypto. And then from there, once people kind of get used to like, understanding what is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the other altcoins and their functionality, then they will kind of explore like, other altcoins on the decentralized exchange and like, swap them with, other tokens or stake them, all the other features that come along with that, right? So yeah, like, I mean, it's a journey, it's a process that people have to go from like, being a retail customer, converting their fiat into, let's say, one of the tokens, and then from there moving into decentralized exchange and explore all the endless possibilities on those platforms, and then again come back to the centralized exchange for more like, secure, safety, and all the other aspects that come along with it.
So you think DeFi is going to be regulated or no?
So it will be difficult to regulate on that aspect, right? Because I mean, users are connecting their MetaMask wallet. So how can you connect MetaMask wallets, directly on the decentralized exchange, unless you again put like an additional layer on top of it, right? So yeah.
In my opinion, if it's regulated, it's not decentralized. Those can't work together because. Sorry. Yeah. If you just allow me to finish. If it's regulated, that means there is an authorized compliance officer, there's an authorized CEO, there is a finance officer. There is no CEO of Bitcoin. There is no decentralized networks cannot be regulated. If they are regulated, that means there is a centralized piece. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the future will actually be CDeFi, where you go to a centralized exchange to obtain interest rates and amazing services from decentralized protocols.
And just to follow up on that point, the technical definition of decentralization or centralization is not dependent on anything else other than the custodianship of assets. So if the custodianship of assets is with the user, then it's decentralized. And if the custodianship of the asset is with the exchange, then it's centralized. Right. So whether it's governance, non-governance, whether it's regulated, non-regulated, is not what's defined the centralization or decentralization. It's just the custody of the assets.
Is there a right to seize and right to freeze? Because a centralized
again, it's all about the custody.
Great.
Which is what defines the.
Does the regulator have the right to seize or the right to freeze?
See, I mean, it's a very, very, dicey question to like, but I get your point. I fully agree with that. It's a hard thing to regulate. But again, people's hundreds of billions are staked here, and, making it fully unregulated is something, a big debate, right? It's not something a clear answer to yes or no. But yeah.
Guys, the topic is too hot to discuss. So, Mustafa, what's your idea? So.
I think, to me, I mean, this decentralized versus centralized, it's which should be regulated, which should not be regulated. I find it a bit secondary, as a matter of fact. I mean, what is more important is that who is doing what, right? And we basically see this marketplace where the centralized exchanges are providing more accessibility within the regulated space, because you need to touch upon this data of the user, so you need to align with the GDPR. You need to touch upon the assets of the users, so you need to align with this AML and everything. So, but when it comes to decentralized exchanges, I think they're basically filling this gap in terms of product diversification, right? Because we are very limited. I mean, I cannot offer derivatives. I cannot offer margin trading in Turkey, for example. Why? Because there's this red line. So if I trespass that line, it's a no-go for me. So, I mean, they would just close the shop, right? So there's such lines. So if we are going to be looking into this innovativeness, right? It is what blockchain is about. It is what crypto is about. I think we need to just, focus on who's doing what and how we help each other, how we enable each other.
Okay, thank you. My next question, what are the biggest benefit for a regular investor to deal with decentralized exchange and with centralized one?
Yeah, I think, the biggest is openness, being transparent, having non-custody of assets. So a lot of the centralized exchanges, as we have seen in the crypto history, they can have a lot of big reputation early on, but, if it gets hacked, if something happens to the team or the platform, they still have the custody. So if they just shut down the URL, your money is gone, right? Whereas on decentralized exchanges, that part is also taken off because you always are in the custody of your assets. So that's the first thing, which determines the custodianship. The second is, a lot of centralized platforms have been accused of trading against the users, right? And they usually call centralized exchanges as a casino where the house always wins. Whereas on decentralized platform like ours, all our protocols, like liquidation protocol, like matching engine, everything is on the open web, right? So there is no room for doubt. We cannot manipulate. If you can read code like you read a book, you can open up the code and see what's going on, and there is no hiding fact. So it's a completely trustless, permissionless ecosystem where you are in custody of your assets. And if your computer is secure, you can sleep peacefully. So that's one among few benefits of decentralized exchanges.
Okay, you're next.
Sure. I personally use decentralized exchanges, but I'm not your mass retail traditional user. The reality is humans and their actions more or less stay the same over time, regardless of the technology. If you have $10 worth of gold, you put them under your mattress. You're the custodian. If you have $1 billion worth of gold, you go to a bank, you go to Brinks, you get an insurance policy, because otherwise people would come into your house with a $10 stick and take your money away from you. So in my opinion, if you have a significant amount of money, you will want to use a centralized regulated custodian, because that's just how the world works. If it's money, if it's cash, if it's gold, if it's crypto, institutions will not want to be self-custodian. That's just the reality of it. And then what are the advantages of decentralized exchanges? The biggest one is transparency, for sure. You don't know if a centralized exchange is liquid or not. You don't know if they're rehypothecating and using other people's assets. Whereas with a decentralized exchange, you can verify the creditworthiness of the exchange or protocol in real time. That's something that's amazing, but the majority of people want a username and password. Even Google 2FA they're afraid of. Let alone telling them this private key will determine your financial net worth, and if you lose it, you are absolutely gone. That sounds terrifying to most people. So that's why I think until the user experience improves on the decentralized exchange side, we'll continue to see larger amounts of people going into centralized exchanges. But the future is definitely decentralized. It's just that it's not going to happen today.
I think in some ways, both the worlds kind of exist in parallel, even at a later stage, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, and to your point, Talal, as well, I think, so all these users, the mass adoption that we talk about, right? Like even now, we are still, talking about like the early stages of the crypto adoption, right? And for them to get into this, decentralized exchange, they need to understand, like, even to, like, how to connect, let's say, different sort of like, wallets to the decentralized exchange, right? Which itself is a kind of like a learning process for them, right? So I think the first step is for them to get into this centralized exchange. I think now the benefits between these two are obviously quite different, and they have their own limitations as well, right? Being part of the centralized exchange, I mean, we focus a lot on, like, making sure the regulators, understand the crypto ecosystem, where it's going, and get them onboarded, right, into putting the proactive crypto policies in place for the region. By doing so, we need to make sure that every action we do, we kind of like, keep them in the loop and get their necessary approvals. On centralized, on decentralized side, like, obviously you don't need to get like anyone's approvals. You can just launch any features you want at scale, and then, kind of leave it to the user to adapt to the product feature, right? And as again, like Talal mentioned, like, I think the transparency that comes with decentralized exchange is something that might be slightly limited on the, let's say, centralized exchange. However, there's like different ways of tracking all the transactions, that goes on, like, let's say, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and everywhere else, right? We, on that front, actually, we work with Dubai Police, and also we are actually quite grateful for, Executive Office of AML and the FI unit, which, monitors the GoAML sort of a policy in place, right? So we partnered with them quite closely earlier on to make sure that each and every transaction that happens on the centralized platforms are kind of, monitored, and the information sharing is done so that we make the crypto safe for everyone in the region, right? Those sort of level of partnerships is not, that possible or not easily replicated in a decentralized exchange, right? And there are like obviously a lot of other features as well that I can, kind of quickly go upon, like, let's say instant crypto loans and everything that comes in with a decentralized, exchanges. These things, like, to have something on a centralized platform, it's going to take a few years as well. So, and both the backgrounds and the reasoning where they come from or other have like a big responsibility as well, right? On centralized exchange, we have the ownership and we have the responsibility to make sure customers know what they are getting into, and how their funds are safe, and how their crypto is managed, and hot wallets and everything else. On decentralized, we expect customers to be their own, to be responsible enough for them to make their own transactions, right? Like no central authority, no person kind of takes responsibility. If they are investing into a scam token, that's their loss, right? And there's no one to save them from that aspect of it. So, yeah, like, I mean, on these points, I mean, we've seen like a lot of examples as when in Dubai recently, there was something called Dubai Coin. So all these things kind of like show up every now and then. So I would say that, safety, security, trustworthiness, and having a responsible sort of backing from like central authority as well as the local players are the biggest advantages. And the other flip side, obviously, people would risk to go into decentralized exchanges, product innovations like, new tokens, like, early tokens where you can invest and get like 10x returns, and all of that are the other upside benefits on the other side.
Thank you, Srinu. We also have one more guy. So Mustafa, what's your idea?
Well, I think there's nothing much basically has not been said yet. But I would say that this whole centralized, decentralized discussion has been going on for thousands of years. So I think everything was decentralized when it comes to this monetary economics, right? Up until 1,000 years back, the city coins, tokens, metal money, and everything. So we decided to centralize everything in the last 1,000 years. So now we have these, larger banks, we have these, central banks. They are sort of, monopolizing everything today. So here we are again discussing about decentralizing the finance or keeping the current system in this way. I think what matters most is that's why the central banks are there, why the regulators are there. We need this security and safety. These are the two keywords, right? If you don't have these two notions, you cannot basically maintain just your user base. Doesn't really matter you're a centralized exchange or a decentralized exchange. I think in a competitive environment when it comes to the crypto and what we discussed today, decentralized exchanges have to learn that. I mean, they have to take up these security measures so their users would feel safe, right? It could be this hot wallet, cold wallet, all other measures too, but these are just the tools. But you need to make sure that you provide this baseline for them. I think that's the baseline.
Thank you, Mustafa. My last question of this panel. So as all of us are in UAE region, how is UAE framework supporting of cryptocurrency growth into UAE market from DEX point and from centralized exchange point? What is the timing? What is pricing? What is the whole situation inside regulatory framework? Thank you. You could start.
Yeah. Before I jump onto that, I just want to bring the last point. A lot of panelists are talking about that DeFi is the future. It's not happening right now. It's going to happen sometime in the future. But like, I don't know if you know this, but DEX volumes last month was $200 billion. That is $200 billion were transacted on a handful of decentralized exchanges just last month. So if $200 billion worth of transaction is not happening, not a big deal, then I don't know what is.
How many addresses trade that 200 billion? How many addresses trade that 200 billion?
Yeah, I don't have that statistic, but I do have the final volume number. Yeah, but going back to the main question of the session, I think Middle East here, UAE, Dubai is growing extremely fast. Crypto ecosystem. I think there are a lot of support that we see from different kinds of entities that are popping up. And then last time I was here, and now I see there's a lot of interest, a lot of companies here, so it makes sense to be here, and then have been surrounded by like-minded people. So please.
Sorry, and I didn't mean to criticize or anything, but I also have a big passion for decentralized finance, but the reality is it's still very niche. So out of the audience today, who has actually used a decentralized exchange? Okay, now we're at a crypto event, so ideally it should have been 100%.
So everyone.
Almost everyone. But yeah, basically the 200 billion is traded by a very concentrated number of addresses, which is why you have like Compound, one of the most famous ones, has less than 100,000 addresses that have interacted with it, where Binance have 100 million users. But going back to the UAE framework, I think the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, Abu Dhabi have been very proactive. Congratulations to BitOasis for being the first regulated exchange in ADGM. And I think many others have followed suit, right? In crypto, people always think that exchanges necessarily need to compete with one another. But I always like to say that a rising tide lifts all ships. When crypto succeeds, both CoinMENA, BitOasis, and the rest of the exchanges in the Middle East can all become unicorns. It doesn't, like, the target addressable market is so much bigger than going after others' exchanges clients. So I think ADGM have launched clear regulations. ESCA, the Security and Commodity Authority, have also launched their own guidelines. We had decided to go and be regulated in Bahrain because the central bank is the authority that's regulating crypto there. And as a centralized exchange, my most important stakeholder is the banks. So if I'm regulated under the same umbrella as the banks, we're able to have significantly easier on-ramps and off-ramps. But I'm confident the other exchanges in the Middle East will also be able to do the same. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I would definitely second what Talal has mentioned, right? So I think there's no, like, I mean, especially me on a personal note, I am not a big believer in like winner takes it all. It's never the case. In fact, the more we kind of support each other and like work along and build the entire crypto ecosystem, because ultimately, you know, our visions are like, you know, on the same side, right? To build the entire crypto ecosystem where masses can kind of get in and, you know, have the chance of securing their future in terms of the finance aspect of it, right? So yeah, like I think we are, you know, extremely privileged and, you know, consider ourselves lucky to be in a position where we are working very closely with the local authorities and UAE government. In fact, all the departments in the UAE government have been like super proactive actually to put these policies in place, right? And there are a lot of like different regulated, you know, like let's say entities that's coming up from the central authorities. Backed up by that, like, you know, there's also other entities that's, you know, like Dubai Police and the other authorities kind of partnering with that sort of a thing. So there's this is like a, you know, an entire like a framework that's coming in nicely, wherein, you know, the UAE government and the central authorities kind of, you know, putting forward the framework and like, you know, all the other departments kind of partnering with the local authorities like us. And then we are also working with like, you know, local banks. And in fact, just yesterday, we made a big announcement that we have secured the local bank deposit option that makes people in UAE, you know, deposit like, you know, AED into the local bank of BitOasis and withdraw quite easily without any fees whatsoever, right? This is one big step towards getting the people, in fact, the masses into the crypto ecosystem, right?
Thanks, Srinu. We are limited in time, so
okay, cool.
Sure. Mustafa.
Okay.
So what's your idea?
5 seconds, right? So, so what I can tell is that I don't know much about the UAE markets in terms of the regulations, fees, and everything. But what I see is that these two, you know, beautiful exchanges, they are doing marvelous job, right? Even, you know, CoinMENA, they just, you know, started very recent. I think they're also, you know, prospering quite fine. And BitOasis is also available in various markets. That's what we see. But I think that the UAE regulations are sort of in the pathway of the global regulations. I see this sinking because the regulators, they also, you know, benchmark with each other. They watch each other closely. And I think that regulatory arbitrage is going to be very limited, you know, in the coming years. And we'll see, you know, very much, you know, same, or if not same, the similar regulations across the board. I mean, in the MENA, in the GCC, I mean, also in Europe, also in Central Asia too. But as long as the landscape is conducive for, you know, further development, which is the case and evidenced by these two guys. And I think this is great. And we need to just, you know, take advantage of it, not only here, but also in other parts of the world.
Thank you guys for this great panel. Thank you, audience, for your time. And we will see how digital, centralized and decentralized exchanges will change UAE world, because it's reality. So you could easily change dirham to crypto, do some investment, take profit or losses, and even kid right now could do it. Welcome, guys, and let's get it started. Thank you.
Very good.